you have been told your whole life that you are too sensitive, too emotional, too reactive, that you take things too personally, that you need to toughen up, that not everything is a big deal, and you have tried to be less, to feel less, to react less, and it doesn't work, not really, because you can manage the outside sometimes, but inside the volume is always the same. And so you have carried this story that something is wrong with you emotionally, that you are at your core someone who cannot handle things the way other people can. And I want to tell you today that that story is not accurate. The volume is real. The story about what it means is completely wrong. I'm Ibrahim, nurse practitioner, registered psychotherapist, Ottawa, Toronto. I assess adults for ADHD, and I want to talk about something that is one of the most under-discussed features of ADHD and one of the most painful: emotional dysregulation, the experience of emotions hitting faster than other people's, harder than other people's, and taking longer to come back from than other people's. This is not a personality flaw. This is not a weakness. This is a neurological feature of how the ADHD brain processes emotional input. And when nobody explains it, when every doctor and teacher and partner frames it as a character problem instead of a clinical problem, the damage that does over a lifetime is enormous. Let me give you the clinical picture. There is a phenomenon in ADHD called rejection sensitive dysphoria. Rather, it's associated with ADHD. It's not part of the diagnostic criteria, but it's a term coined by a researcher named William Dodson. And it describes something that a huge percentage of people with ADHD experience, but almost none of them have a name for it. And it's the experience of emotional pain, specifically in response to perceived rejection, criticism, failure, or falling short of your own standards, that is disproportionate in intensity to what triggers it. Not slightly more intense, significantly more intense. The kind of intensity that can derail an entire day from a single comment, that can make a look from someone across the room feel like a verdict on your worth as a person. That can make you replay a conversation for hours looking for what you did wrong. The ADHD brain doesn't modulate that signal the way other brains do. It hits full volume every time. And here is what this looks like in a real life. You get a piece of feedback at work, mild, constructive, not unkind, and you spend the rest of the day in a spiral. You send the text and it goes unanswered, and your brain generates 17 explanations for why this person now hates you. Someone's tone is slightly off in a meeting, and you spend the afternoon trying to figure out what you did. A friend cancels plans, and even though you know logically it's probably nothing, the emotional hit is abandonment level. And meanwhile, you're watching other people receive the same inputs and just move on. And you wonder why you cannot do what seems so simple. The answer is not that you care too much. The answer is that your nervous system is processing that signal through a different filter. one that doesn't have the same dampening mechanism. The other dimension of this is that almost never gets talked about is the flip side, because the ADHD brain that feels rejection and criticism at full volume also feels joy, excitement, passion, and connection at full volume. The enthusiasm that can fill a room, the genuine delight in things that matter to you, the intensity of care for the people you love, the way you can be completely, wholly present with something when it truly captures you. These are the same neurology, the same volume dial. It's not selectively turned up for the painful stuff and normal for the good stuff. It's turned up for everything. And the people who have called you too sensitive their whole lives have been only looking at one half of what volume dial produces. I want to talk specifically about what this costs women, because this is where I see the most damage and where the longest delays in diagnosis happen. Women with ADHD are more likely to have the inattentive presentation, more likely to mask effectively, and more likely to have their emotional dysregulation pathologized as a mood disorder, a personality issue, or just being a woman. The clinical pattern I see regularly is a woman in her 30s or 40s who has been treated for anxiety and depression for years, sometimes decades, with partial results. The anxiety treatment helped some things, the depression treatment helped some things, but something was still fundamentally off and nobody could name it. And when we do a proper assessment, the picture that emerges is ADHD primary with anxiety and the emotional dysregulation as features of that, not separate conditions requiring separate treatment. The whole picture changes. Here's the piece that I find most clinically significant and that almost never gets included in the ADHD conversation. Masking emotions on top of masking ADHD is a double tax. If you are already spending enormous energy compensating for executive dysfunction, managing disorganization, the time blindness, the activation problems, and you're also spending energy managing how you appear emotionally, keeping the volume down, performing calm you don't feel, editing your reactions before they come out, you are running two full-time suppression systems simultaneously. And people wonder why you are exhausted by the afternoon. People wonder why you seem fine all day and fall apart at home. It's because home is where you can finally stop paying both taxes at once. That's not instability. That's what the end of a very expensive day looks like. As a nurse practitioner, what I'm doing in the assessment is trying to get the full picture, not just confirm ADHD, but understand the emotional layer clearly. Is this emotional dysregulation a feature of ADHD? Is there a mood disorder sitting alongside it? Bipolar 2 is frequently missed in this population, and it presents with emotional intensity and reactivity that maps very closely. Is there a trauma history that's shaping the sensitivity pattern? These distinctions matter because the treatment is different. Stimulant medication can help with some aspects of emotional dysregulation in ADHD. Mood stabilization is a different intervention entirely. Psychotherapy, which I'm also trained to provide, addresses different layers still. The plan has to fit the actual picture. not the most convenient one. But I want to give you the reframe now. And I mean this as a clinical statement, not motivational one. The ADHD brain that processes emotional input at full volume is the same brain that is capable of extraordinary empathy, of reading a room faster than anyone else in it, of caring about things so completely that it changes outcomes, of feeling the weight of what matters in a way that moves people. These are not compensations for a broken emotional system. They are expressions of the same system, one that is more sensitive, not less capable. The goal of treatment isn't to turn the volume down to normal. It's to give you enough regulation that you can choose when to turn it up instead of having it happen to you. The people in your life who called you too sensitive were not giving you clinical information. They were telling you that your emotional experience was inconvenient for them. That is a different thing. You were not too much. You were misunderstood by people who didn't have the framework to understand what they were seeing, including sometimes yourself. The framework exists now. The clinical picture is buildable. And once you have it, the story changes, not from broken to fixed, but from confused to clear. Clarity is what we are building. If any of this landed, if the volume dial, the rejection spiral, the double tax of masking, if that felt like someone finally naming something you have been living for years, come to adultadhd.crocuscare.ca. Let's build the accurate picture, not the personality verdict, the clinical one, and figure out what support actually looks like for how you are actually wired.